WOC family, Lexima here. Today we are going to talk about how do you find your superpower to lead and earn your creativity, your power to be you. All right. So, when it comes to taking action, when it comes to earning what you believe is yours, and I'm not talking about money, I'm talking about your true essence, it takes a lot of work, right? So, what does it take to understand or learn how to find that thing that is your, or that would make you fly, right? How do you find that? And for this program, the Lead and Earn program, I must tell you this. It took some time to bring it to where it is now. To the point where as I've talked about before, you have to get comfortable being uncomfortable. Okay? I had to go through that process. But before I even got to that point, I had to learn of who I am. Like, who am I, right? It's not the country. I mean, these things shape you, but it's not just the country, the people who had me. As my mom said, that people don't have kids, but the universe creates them, or God in her case. But it's not those things. But now you hear, I mean, they are, but now you're at a certain age, like you got to find your core, right? Because I feel like most of us, for the most part, the majority of our core, we've been told, right? Or it's not that we've been told, it's been programmed. It's programmed, therefore we're at a point of trying to understand who are we, by understanding who we are, making our own decisions without looking for our parents' validation or our community's validation. So finding that core. And I think the ability to make decisions or having options, having choices are part of that. So how do you find that superpower to help you do that? And it takes exploring a lot of aspects of things. I mean, the list goes on, right? But I think for me, one of the things that I discovered, and I can share this, is once I got curious about the issues in my community that I wasn't comfortable with, particularly one where I witnessed a friend's mom getting physically abused by her dad. Like, I really studied that. And then after that, I started seeing the patterns, right, within that community. Once I realized the patterns within that community, I realized the people who create these patterns. And then the children that are looking after them. So this is why for this program, I said thriving communities, safer children, happy children and safer world. Because ultimately, this program, without a healthy community, healthy is relative, right? I said thriving, because every community is going to have their own unique qualities or talents and things, way, culture that they do things. But ultimately, those who are willing to be reflective, those who are willing to be curious, answering questions, and those who are willing to get uncomfortable going places or meeting people that they've never cared for. These are some of the things that helped me. And I guess as a kid, I've always been like, I've always questioned things, and don't ask me where that comes from. I have no idea, but I knew it was something that I always had because I used to get in trouble for it as a kid. And the fact that I had more responsibility at such an early age in life kind of like boost that out of me, right? Because I feel the need, like, if I'm responsible for you, I have the right to question you. But not only that, I realized that I had that power with adults too. Because I was given the power to actually run a small business, for example. So I was responsible for selling, collecting money, making sure, so that gave me, those sense of responsibilities or parentification roles or that I got to play, actually were created as a, or came to be as a result of ways that parents, communities saw that they can leverage that. But the danger of those things as well is the opposite, right? Where you are taken advantage of. And I've realized for the most part of my life, that side of giving, that side of awareness, that side of willing to help others, people will take advantage. As much as you're willing to give it, people will exploit it. And for me, it has been exploited. It has been abused. It has been, I mean, from the time that I can remember, and it started at such an early age, I was so blind by it. So the first thing when it comes to finding out what is your superpower to help you reach whatever that self-worth or that self-esteem that you want to reach or that thing you want to do, is to try to understand what is your core. What is something that really has always been part of you, but still with you as you've gone through that change, right? And to me, what I've realized is different phases of my life, I've become a new version. But the core that underneath me, that has been that core of someone who can relate, someone who's willing to give, someone who's willing to listen, I realize that's always been part of my core. And it has provided me friends. It has, friends that are still part of my life, friends that are exploited and run, friends that are, and it's not just friends, it's family. It's the thing that's always been your gift, but you've never been aware of it, but yet others have been able to do it. Whether it's finding a nonprofit that, or talking about issues that people want to join you. There are some people who want to be part of that because they care, but there are some people who want to be part of you just to exploit that. And I don't know if there's a way to prevent it, but the only thing that you can control is your ability to not lose that sense of yourself. And I believe I've always had that as a kid. And so I would say the first thing to understanding what and how to best figure out, or at least learn how to find your superpower to help you become a better decision maker of your life, and to create whatever or to live a certain lifestyle that you want to. As I said, mine is to create my peace, right? And what does that look like? And how does that, and who's part of that? Is anybody else part of that? Why? It's like the whole question. If you have to have dinner with 3 people, or if you only had 10 seconds to meet 3 people before you die, like, who would be these 3 people? So what are those for you? Clearly yourself would be part of it, right? But if you're not part of that, if it's somebody else, why these people? What is it that they have that you need or that you would like to have? So I would say when it comes down to finding the best way to learn how to lead and earn your highest blank, whatever that is, you have to be reflective. You have to be able to reflect of who you are or where have you been, right? And for a long time, this didn't just come to me, but what helped me is, it's something I think I always had and lost it as a kid. And my little niece, she's 5, and she's been sort of like my mirror. It's a weird thing to say because this is my youngest sister's child, right? This kid, whenever I spend time with her, try to do something with her, especially when it comes to be around discipline and things like that, she finds a way to come back. Like, she'll deal with it. Like, I would say, you can't do this, and she'll cry. She'll, she was much younger then. She would cry and she would deal with it. But she would come back to me and said, Auntie, I didn't like this and that. Or whether it was her 4th birthday party that I went to, and I had to leave early. And then when she came home, she saw me home. She said, you left the party early and you didn't tell me. So, and then we would talk about it the next day, and then she would bring it up again. And then that part of me just opened up. Like, she just opened my eyes. I was like, wait a minute. there's a little part of her, those little behaviors that she showed me, it just opened that side of me. I was like, wait a minute, there's something about this child that's connecting with me that I wasn't understanding before. And it just brought that side of me. It just brought that kid of me that disappeared, right? And that because I used to get in trouble for it for so long as a kid, when I would question my parents when they do certain things. I would get so much, and I mean, it wasn't just my parents, it was just the community. I grew up in a country for the first 12 years of my life. I was raised by that community. So you couldn't question things. And that's something I used to do a lot. So when my little niece started to bring that, and then we would talk about it. Like, I was so open, we would talk about it, I would explain, I wouldn't try to get mad or anything. And it just opened that side of me, and it helped me connect to a side of myself that had died. So be reflective, and that reflection, that ability to reflect, allowed me to go back to my childhood and just realizing so much that were not that weren't part of me, but they were still in me. So I had to learn to break that down. And during the pandemic, I would say started like 2018, even though I had already gone through some type of process where I felt like I was disconnecting from a lot in my life, but the pandemic helped me just take it to a new height. So I would say, when it comes to finding your superpower, and don't be afraid of being reflective, right? Whether it's don't just think about the painful stuff. Think about the good stuff. Like, I remember, somebody, for example, I was I worked for the Hillary presidential campaign, where I stayed with a family in Pennsylvania. Just having that gift, the way they treated me. And of course they have 3 kids, and they weren't home. So it was, I remember this family just taking me in, walking me into their home, and I thought, oh my goodness. And it's something I had done when I was in college. I also lived with a family in DC to save costs. And it just brought me to that side of like, hey, despite what's going on in the world, there are still amazing people around the world. So it's the little things that you sometimes don't pay attention to. We take them for granted. And sometimes it's the big things where, you have a parent that's going through some major health crisis, or yourself, for example. Oops, my light just went off. Hold on a second here. Oops. All right, we need better lighting. It goes dark. So whatever that is for you, just try to figure it out. Okay, that's better. Yeah, got better lighting. So don't just think about the big stuff, right? Like, I've had some major health scare stuff, and they've always been part of me as a kid, which I've also discovered part of the reason why I've always had this one major health issue. I mean, the more I reflect, the more I realize I was able to connect a lot of the challenges that I've experienced and continue to experience, and now I'm learning to shift them. That's also been part of the program that you're looking at, the Lead and Earn program. So this is what you're getting when you get to work with me as your, whether it's to guide you where you stuck, or to champion on your behalf to get the funding. It's my ability to understand you better to be able to do that. So the number 2 thing is to be curious. When I say be curious, is this. It could be you never care for something in life, right? And that thing could be eating sushi. Like, I know people who hate sushi. But first time I got exposed to sushi, I believe I was in high school or middle school. So I was in middle school, and I learned about sushi through my friend Tao. This was middle school, it was ages ago. Who is Vietnamese, and I remember it's either she brought it to school, or she was talking about it with another kid, and I thought, hey, what is that? So I had a computer in high school, And so I mean, we had computer labs, yes, in middle school too. So I looked it up. I looked it up, and I knew what sushi was since I was in middle school. Didn't know how to use a chopstick or anything like that. But let me tell you, today, one of my favorite food, okay, I love Thai food, but I love sushi, okay? Give me a nice, a nice sushi meal, right? Whether it is a rainbow roll or you name it. So it could be something as simple as trying a food that you've never tried, right? Or attempted to say hi in a language that you've never done. But I've always, as I said, as a kid, I've always pictured myself around the world. So when I came to the States, one of the things that I was unable to do to go to Haiti, which is a place that I wanted to go to. You know, I left when I was a kid and I wanted to go. So the first trip I ever took was with my sister, my older sister, and I went with her family. And I was in college. I think I was in my junior year. And then after that, I went with my cousin, who now has a church and a school in Haiti. And so I started, and then I couldn't go by myself, of course. I wasn't too comfortable because I don't know people there. My family had left, and then I started getting comfortable going by myself. And it was the first trip that I took, whether it was to Europe with my friends. Like I became. I mean, make sure it's something you like, right, or you enjoy. Make sure it's not something that's gonna put you in danger for the sake of being curious. Again, if that's your thing, I'm not saying don't do it, but it's taking these little steps. And so be reflective, be curious, and be uncomfortable being comfortable. So my uncomfortable is this. I'm talking to you now from a, you know, I don't know where you are if you're looking at this, but I'm talking to you virtually. I'm not in front of you. I mean, I'm in front of you. But the ability for me to sit here talking to you using a video camera and a microphone, you will not know if one of my biggest fears at one point in my life was public speaking, right? And I remember taking my first step. I can't remember how long it was, but I went through Toastmasters classes like when I was in I don't know, it's like second year in my career, like things like that. Taking these small steps, like getting uncomfortable, whether it's the nervousness. I mean, I have no problem talking to people, getting in a like I don't have problem when I say public speaking. I mean getting on a podium and talk. That wasn't my thing, but I've always loved to talk and things like that. And particularly when it comes to, I would have to say the majority of my friends that I've met, especially in college, is because I either met them at the dining place or I physically walk up to them and greet them and so forth. That's something I was never afraid of. When it comes to one-on-one small groups, that's my thing. But you put me on a podium and tell me to give a speech, if you did that 5 years ago, that would have not be that woman. Okay. But if you need me to rally a crowd, get them going, yes, I can do that. And I love it. So it's not that I love to give speeches like that, but I've gotten comfortable doing it, right? And I have to thank people for that, because I remember my first consulting gig. I was asked to give a speech about that, or an update about the particular client that we were part of. And this guy, who was my boss at the time, and amazing guy named Garrett, he was my senior, and he actually was the one who hired me for that role. And let me tell you, I was so nervous and I thought I blew it. But that opportunity just sort of like, and this was, oh my goodness, this was over a decade ago. Okay, more than a decade ago. I was in my early or mid 20s, I think, when I was doing this. But yeah, but little things to big things can help you do that. And it's hard. If it's hard for you to do, you can write them down, right? You can have a journal that can help you just think about those, whether things that maybe you never had a journal, right? But perhaps it's something you want to start changing about yourself to try to understand yourself better, or to understand what is your core, what is it that's your thing. It doesn't have to be something that, that's going to be work related. It could be something that truly makes you happy, that you enjoy. So start with that, and then the window will open. It will go from there. All right. So to recap, how to find your superpower to lead in your higher self-worth, or your creativity, your truth, your voice, is to be able to look at those three things. Be reflective, be curious, and more importantly, it's okay to be uncomfortable. All right. And I would say that's all I'll say to that. And some of you will already know this because you've either been active at looking at this, and I'm not saying do this for jobs. Do it for your happiness. Do it for that big thing that is important to you, or the small thing that makes a world of difference. And for me, it was to really, I realized that I've always been part of people doing things and so forth. I realized that I like to help people, but not the way that people want me to help them. And so I realized that as long as people are helping themselves, okay, I'm willing to work with them. This is why our mission is to partner for untapped creativity, because I truly believe we all have that core thing inside of us, but the ability to find it is not easy. So this is my gift. Well, this is my superpower. I'm able to listen, connect things, and then saying, hey, aha, I can help create a pie out of missing pieces. Like I can do that. Sometimes it's also your superpower can also be your greatest strength, but it could also be your greatest weakness, right? Well, I don't want to say weakness, but areas that you need to do better, because sometimes I get so dive into it, I can lose the or I can like branch out to like get something can start so big or so small and it becomes so big, because I tend to look this way, but I get the details, and sometimes you can just find it and then stick with what it is. Where me, I tend to want to dive deeper. But that's why it took me so long to bring Lead and Earn to the table, because when I started with the idea, and all the people who've been involved with Women on Change, they'll tell you when they started, it was just this idea. But I always knew it was to bring a bigger group of people for a common goal, and that is, how do we serve, or how do we help those who may not know, or perhaps they do know but don't know how to go about it. And that is, I focused on women and children in particular, because the gift of women to bring kids to this world, I mean, both parents, right? I think the bigger responsibility is to, once you plant that seed, the biggest work is to grow that seed, and women hold the majority of that part. And therefore, if we can equip them early enough, not to give them all the fancy stuff, the big jobs, but just to know enough that they have enough in them to bounce, to be resilient, to know that it will be all right, because they have that gift or that superpower that they were born with. If they can find it early, and making sure that their children also have it, I think we can save a lot of lives. And the way we do that is to make sure that we create an environment where every child that comes, that there's adults in that community, children in that community, that can support one another, be who they are, right? Accept their uncomfortableness, if you want to put it that way, or explore. Because if you're not exploring different things, you're not gonna know that. But it's allow them to be free. It's either they're interested in soccer today, maybe they're interested in piano today, and they have to do that up to a certain point. I mean, I had to do it until I was like 35. I was still trying new things, whether it's dating, whether it's different careers. Once I realized that there was something else that wasn't connected, I wanted to do more. And that network that you built, sometimes it has to fall for you to rebuild it. That's the beauty about being resilient or growing, right? So your ability to grow, your ability to do any of that has to start with something that's within you that you know deep down it's your core. And until you have that, it's going to be really hard. I call it your superpower, right? So with that said, Lexima here, Lexima Jeanose. I want to emphasize that because the Lexima family is huge. But that face, there's no one like it. Okay, so the Lead In On program, download it. Also, like this channel. So there's a lot that's gonna come here, and I'm gonna be posting for a while because I am realizing that there are a lot of folks I will be working with who cannot access or who cannot talk to me, and I can't be where they are. So I'm gonna try to put a lot of the information here and hope that it's helpful so you can join this. My goal is to help you do what you do best when it comes to helping me help more children and parents around the world, because I don't want to see children suffer, and I'm doing my part to do so. All right, download the program, and don't forget, have a blessed day. Make a good day. All right, cheers.